In the quiet town of Clearwater, Minnesota, the Hewling family was well known and respected. Alice Hewling, a dedicated mother, was raising her 4 children, Susan, Wayne, Patty, and Billy. Their lives were typical of a close-knit Midwestern family, filled with school activities, community events, and the simple joys of rural living. However, their peaceful existence was shattered on the morning of December 15th, 1978. That winter morning, the crisp air was filled with the usual silence of rural Minnesota. But inside the Hewling home, a nightmare had unfolded. When authorities arrived, they found a gruesome crime scene. Alice and 3 of her children had been brutally murdered. Alice was found shot to death in her bedroom, and her children, 16-year-old Susan, 13-year-old Wayne, and 12-year-old Patty, had also been fatally shot. The only survivor was 11-year-old Billy, who had somehow escaped the carnage. He was found huddled under his bed, shaking and unable to speak, his wide eyes filled with terror. The crime scene bore signs of a methodical and ruthless attack. There was no sign of forced entry, which led investigators to believe the perpetrator may have been someone familiar with the family or had gained access through deception. The small town, where doors were often left unlocked and neighbors trusted one another implicitly, was left in a state of shock. The randomness of the crime fueled fear. Was a killer lurking among them? The investigation into the Hewling family members was extensive but yielded few leads. Local law enforcement worked tirelessly, but with limited forensic technology at the time. Much of the case relied on witness statements and circumstantial evidence. The brutality of the crime suggested a perpetrator with a violent history, yet no immediate suspects emerged. Months passed, then years, and the case grew cold. But the sense of unease in Clearwater never faded. Families locked their doors at night, and whispers of the tragedy persisted. Some speculated that the killer had been a drifter, passing through town before vanishing into obscurity. Others wondered if it had been someone local, someone they saw at the grocery store, at church, or even at school. Then, other crimes began occurring in Minnesota, further unsettling the state. On May 8, 1979, another young woman, 19-year-old Marlis Ann Wohlenhaus, was found murdered in her home. She had been sexually assaulted and beaten to death. The brutality of the attack bore eerie similarities to the Hewling case, but no connections were made at the time. A year later, on September 26, 1980, a promising University of Minnesota student, 19-year-old Diane Edwards, disappeared after leaving her job at a local restaurant. Her body was discovered days later. She had been sexually assaulted and murdered. With 3 murders within 2 years, investigators started considering the possibility of a serial predator. Despite the growing pattern, no suspect had been identified. Law enforcement faced immense pressure, and the lack of DNA technology at the time meant that linking these crimes together remained a daunting task. The cases, one by one, slipped into obscurity. That changed on October 30th, 1980, when law enforcement arrested Joseph Donald Tour Jr. for the rapes of a 13-year-old girl and 2 other women. Tour, born in 1950 in St. Paul, Minnesota, had a troubled upbringing and a history of violent behavior. His early life was marked by juvenile delinquency, and as he grew older, his crimes escalated. By the late 1970s, Tour had developed a sinister pattern, breaking into homes, assaulting women, and leaving little trace of his presence. While in custody, investigators began to suspect Tour's involvement in the unsolved murders. Witnesses placed him near the scene of Diane Edwards' abduction, and further investigation linked him to Marlis Wohlenhaus's murder. In 1981, he was convicted of Edwards' murder and sentenced to life in prison. For years, Tour remained behind bars, but the mystery of the Hewling family's murder still loomed. It wasn't until 1996 that advancements in forensic science reignited interest in cold cases. Authorities reopened the investigation into the Hewling murders, re-examining evidence and comparing it to Tour's known crimes. The similarities were chilling. In 1999, a grand jury indicted Tour for the 1978 murders of Alice Hewling and her children. The indictment was based on a combination of his known modus operandi, forensic evidence, and confessions he had made to fellow inmates, statements he later recanted. In 2000, he was found guilty and sentenced to additional life sentences. Joseph Tour Jr.'s reign of terror from 1978 to 1980 left an indelible mark on Minnesota. His crimes devastated the families of the victims and instilled a pervasive sense of fear throughout the state. While his conviction brought some measure of justice, it could never fully heal the wounds inflicted upon the community. To this day, the story of the Huling family remains one of Minnesota's most haunting tragedies, a tale of innocence lost, lives cut short, and justice delayed. The case underscores the importance of persistent investigative efforts, advancements in forensic science, and the relentless pursuit of the truth in solving cold cases. The legacy of Tour's crimes is a reminder of the darkness that sometimes lurks in the most unexpected places, and yet it also serves as a testament to the resilience of those left behind, who fight for justice even in the face of unimaginable loss. Billy Huling, the sole survivor of that fateful night, grew up haunted by the horrors he witnessed. Yet, he persevered, determined to honor his family's memory. His story stands as a symbol of survival, a flicker of light amidst the shadows of a past that Clearwater, Minnesota will never forget.